have is the few shot prompting. This is where
Mhm.
you provide a few examples and you're grounding it so that you can provide the scope of what you're actually looking for. This helps to really narrow down Copilot's all-encompassing knowledge to what you're specifically like looking for. This is really effective for things like clarifying the output, clarifying format, clarifying the nuances of what you're asking. So the example that we have here is consider these responses to customer service issues. So we're a brand new coffee shop. We're trying to figure out like all the ins and outs. We got a bunch of complaints in week number one. So here's all the complaints that we've got in week number one. Now help us to create a response for maybe issues with the loyalty program, maybe issues with the throughput, getting drinks out on the other side, maybe issues with clarifying what's on our menu. By giving it a few different examples, Copilot and the large
Mhm.
language models in general are very, very good at kind of extracting the concept, the objectives, the outcomes. Even if they're not explicitly included in the prompt, they're very good at extracting and identifying that information and being able to not only give you relevant information, but maybe also point out some gaps that you might not have noticed along the way. So few shot,
Mhm.
we're giving a few different examples. And those examples could be complementary to one another. They could also be opposing to one another. And Copilot's going to kind of fill in some of the gaps and give you an output around that.
Yeah,
So
and one thing that I do want to point out that might be in the back of some people's mind who are like rolling out Copilot is, wait a second. I thought Microsoft said that the large language model in Copilot doesn't learn from my enterprise data or doesn't learn from my prompts and responses. I do want to clarify that what we're talking about is we're within a session. So you can do a temporary quote unquote learning session where you are teaching the large language model what you want right now. But if you were to start a new topic, like new chat, it's not going to have that history, right? From like where you were. So you're not, whenever we say that you're teaching the model to do something in the same theme as what you want, you're not you're not teaching it long term. You're teaching it in the session that you're having right now. So, some people who are kind of a little bit worried about like is this going to be like stuck in the LLM and whatever secret thing I was talking about stays there? That's not what's happening here. We're basically, like we're kind of leading it down a path. If we end this session, the large language model doesn't like remember what we were doing. So I did want to point that out because I could imagine some alarm bells going off
yeah, that's
for
a
some
good call out.
people.
All right, let's dive into this example, and I'll
Perfect.
come on screen for this one and show. What I'm going to do is take what we've already done. We've got two examples there. We got an opening and a closing checklist. But what about running things throughout the day? So let's go in. We'll do just here new page. We're going to go and draft page content. I'm going to paste that information in. So
Mhm.
that's the previous information is in, and create a um, midday checklist for coffee shop operations. So now we've got two samples of information, got a similar format between the two. They contrast a little bit because they're opening and closing. So what's it going to come up with for midday interaction, midday processes? So midday checklist. Make sure you check and restock supplies, replenish the condiments, empty and clean out any coffee pots, wipe down your tables, check the pastries, monitor the cash register, make sure you got enough change, check the status of the equipment and the appliances, address any maintenance issues, review the daily specials, ensure that all employees are present, performing their duties, and then
Mhm.
monitor your customer service satisfaction along the way. And so you can kind of compare and contrast that with the previous two examples. That it is referencing some of the stuff that it did before, but it's also filling in some of the gaps, and even in some cases, providing a little bit of insight beyond that. So, like we saw for the opening, ensure everybody's are present and in proper uniform.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, making sure everybody's checked out and ready to leave. Well, midday, make sure that they're present performing duties. And we could even expand off of that. Create a list of 5 things that you think that teammates in our coffee shop should be doing throughout the day to provide good customer service satisfaction. And you would be building on the few shot that you already had. So that's an example of how we can take something that we've already done and then build on that, using that as kind of a reference for the next part of the process. Now that's kind of foreshadowing for something we're going to talk about in a little while called iterative prompting. But in this case, specifically for few shot, we've given it a couple of examples of what we're looking for. Help us to create the next output based off of that.
Hmm. Will has a really good question here. That's how do we handle situations where you know ahead of time that generally like there's only one correct response? Like you know what the right answer is and you want it to stick to that. He did provide an example. He's like, so like, what if I wanted something from the prompt that like I articulated really specific requirements and I want to get it like, back in a specific manner. I think my answer, if I understand it correctly, Will, would be I think you would be wanting to stick to a one shot method for that. So it's like you're giving it the exact structure you want, you're giving it the answer, and then saying, follow this for a different like detail. Um, I think few shot gives you a little bit more creativity back and it gives it more room to kind of like figure out, what it wants to do. But I if I understand correctly, I think probably I would give it like the answer as a theoretical example and have it follow that for me. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're
What do you
spot
think,
on with
Andy?
that, John. And shout out to Will. He's from my neck of the woods. To For what Will's asking, a one shot would actually be very good there. You want to give it an example of what the output you want it to
Hmm.
have looks like, and then you provide the parameters of that output, and then you would provide the ask. So by providing the sample and then the parameters, and then giving it the ask within that particular
Hmm.
prompt, you're more likely to get the output that you're looking for, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think what you could do, like even going out to, oh my gosh, I just blanked out on what's the what's the developer tool for like finding code and asking questions. Um,
Well, there's W
Crap,
three
what's that?
schools.
Yeah, W3 schools. I was thinking, gosh, I forgot. It's like a forum, right? That has
Stack
like coding
Overflow.
questions. Yeah, Stack Overflow. I don't know why I forgot that. But like if it's like, okay, I need to write a PowerShell script that's like a for each to, do I don't know, like assigning a meeting policy to people or something like that. And you don't have that exact code, but you could like go find something in Stack Overflow that's like how to create a for each in PowerShell based off a CSV file or something like that, then you could say, I want you to use this structure. Here's like something that works. I want you to apply it to this commandlet in PowerShell. I think that would be an example of one shot in coding where like you would get a scripted answer based off of like a coding technique like a for each or something like that. So yeah, that's a really good question though, and I think it does drive into the fact of like, all right, you've got three arrows in your quiver: the zero shot, the fuse shot, and the one shot. What are you going to use when? Right? Like, I want it to be more creative, or I want it to do it the same every single time. You know, like I don't know. Like I almost view a one shot as like in the example of writing a customer complaint response. I almost view it as like a mail merge, a fancy way of doing a mail merge. It's going to be the same way every time, but it might word the empathy section a little bit differently
Mhm.
or something like that. But it's generally going to do the three things I want it to do. Where if I gave it like a few shot that had more variety, it might offer them, something crazy. I don't know. It just depends on if variety is okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So to kind of put this in context, and I'm bringing my prompt library up on the screen inside of Loop
Hmm.
to kind of share some insight here. Just defining the first three that we covered: the zero shot, the one shot, and the few shot, along with the description and the use case. And then there's
Hmm.
a couple of like generic examples that you'd work with. But you're going to find that these techniques vary as you move across the different Copilot experiences. So if you try this in Copilot Chat, Word, Outlook, you're going to get a pretty good result out of that. But if you try to take like a zero shot into Excel, Excel's probably going to say, "I'm sorry, I'm still learning," and it might not give you what you're looking for. If you take this into PowerPoint, the results, they're going to be kind of mixed because Excel's for working with table-based data, PowerPoint's for working with like presentations. So your results are going to vary just a little bit. We just saw though, as part of the demo here, that this actually works very well for Copilot in Loop, beyond just kind of the ones that we have there. I've got a
Hmm.
couple other columns here where we are going to insert maybe some more prompts as we're kind of like moving through this, but I just wanted to kind of point the use case across the various copilots out as we're discussing this. Moving into the one-shot prompting, this one is good when you need a specific style or format, like Will's question. This
Hmm.
one works very well for Copilot Chat, works very well in Word, works really good in Outlook whenever you're trying to craft a response with a certain tone, certain voice associated um, with it. Um, with one-shot prompting, I also want to point out, and going back to Will's coding question, GitHub Copilot's really good for that. So if you don't have a
Hmm.
license for that, I would check that out. And then Few Shot. This one's good when you need to give a couple of different examples to maybe clarify the requirements and kind of load the system, so to speak, ground the system, and get it down to the context and the scope that you want. I find this works great in Copilot Chat, but it'll kind of vary as you go across some of the different applications. Now, with that, I do want to show you one more series of examples around zero shot, one shot, and few shot, and it's just another way to think about it. So, with that, I'm going to head into. We'll do this in Copilot. All right, so I'm in Copilot for the web. This one's business protected data, so it does have web search enabled with it. And I'm going to do a zero shot, and then I'm going to build off of that. So we're talking about a coffee shop franchise. So I'm going to say A is for Americano. Pretty basic. It's like we're doing a kids game. A is for Americano. And I'm
Hmm.
going to let Copilot do what it does. And it's like, yep, that's correct. An Americano, it's a type of drink made by diluting espresso in hot water. Now, I didn't give it any other context beyond that. I just said A is for Americano. So I'm going to take that, and then I'm going to go back. Let's paste that in, and then I'm going to say B is for, and I'm just going to leave that. I'm going to leave it open ended. A is for Americano, B is for, and then I'm going to put that in. This is more of kind of, we're kind of in the zero shot range. I'm leaving it open ended. Like I get, or well, actually, we're kind of in the one shot. I told it A is for Americano, B is for, but I'm leaving it kind of open ended so it can interpret that. And look what it's doing. If we're following the pattern of coffee drinks, starting with the letters of the alphabet, A is for Americano, B could be for Breve, and then it kind of gives us an example off of that. I didn't tell
Hmm.
it specifically that I wanted to go down the route of the ABCs of coffee drinks. Now, in my mind, that's where this example is actually going. I'm going down the ABC of coffee drinks, but I didn't tell it that. I just said B is for, and I left it open ended. It interpreted that. So, this is a situation where you might need to provide a little bit of grounding, a little bit of context to get it to go in the direction that you want. Otherwise, it is very fairly intelligent, and it can kind of interpret the direction that you want to go based off of maybe the context of the conversation. So in this particular case, because this is like literally a conversation, like we started with A is for Americano, B is for, it was able to
Hmm.
look at the previous back and forth and figure out, oh, this is what we're actually talking about. So let's take that and go to a new topic. We're going to clear out this conversation and we're going to go to a new topic. All right, so I'm just going to paste this in. And Americano is for A, B is for, and I'll just update this. And I'm going to leave it there, kind of a one shot. And we're going to see if it's able to figure out the direction that we want to go with this. So coffee themed alphabet. A is for Americano, B is for Breve. It's a half and half milk option. So it didn't continue anymore from there, but it's picking up what we're looking for. And it even suggests, hey, maybe you want to do C for cappuccino and D for a doppio, and just kind of continuing down that route. So this is where you can it can be fun. You can say, please continue with the ABCs of coffee drinks, because now we've given an initial, one shot. We've set the context. It has an idea of what we're doing. So now I can just follow up
Mhm.
simply with natural language and just say, continue this. And then it should go ahead and do so. So here's the continuation. And not only is it giving me C is for, it's also giving me a brief description, and it went ahead and it took the liberty of putting it into a list for me, which is really helpful.
Mhm.
So this one's kind of showing, a few different elements of the power of the prompting techniques, and just kind of giving you some insight into how it thinks, kind of on the back end as it's working through this. Now,
Mhm.
this particular one, we've got A, we've got B, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of just copy a little bit of this, and we'll do the next part. So that's kind of a one shot, and then continuing off of that, let's go and do a
Mhm.
few shot. So we're going to do, oops, and I just need to go, hold on one second. I'm going to go over here, do my handy little clipboard, copy, paste that in. And I'm going to remove, like, I don't even want the definition there. And I'm just kind of cleaning this up a little bit so like it looks readable for me. And then I'm going to put that in, and we're going to see now this is a few shot example. We've given it 3 or 4 examples, and now it's telling me, hey, I see you're creating an alphabet themed coffee list. I can continue the list if you like. And I'm going to say, yes, please continue the list. Contextually, it knows what I want to do now. It's going ahead and giving me that as a predefined option along the bottom.
Mhm.
So I discovered this like early on working with ChatGPT, and then I've been able to use it through my adventures with Copilot as well. Full backstory on this: I sing songs to my kids every night when I put them to bed, and we do the ABCs. But I don't like to just do ABC. I like to do, A is for airplane, B is for bus, C is for car. And one of
Mhm.
the ways that I've kind of kept myself interested is to kind of challenge myself, and I'll pick a theme and I try to do an ABC theme throughout. Coffee shop is one of them.
For the
Uh,
whole
the
alphabet.
ABCs of fruits and vegetables, the ABCs of just fruits, the ABCs of just vegetables, the ABCs of Marvel comic characters, cartoon characters. That's a really fun game for me.
Yeah.
And it taught me, or like in trying to like figure out some of these, I turned to AI, and it's like, hey, help me figure out like what's a fruit that begins with the letter X, and give me three different fruits that begin with the letter X. And so you kind of learn to like fill in the gaps there. But there we have it. That's a few shot technique, and we by giving it 4 examples, it was able to extrapolate, this is the thing that you're doing. And it even gave us the prompt. It's like down at the bottom, it went ahead and gave us that prompt, so we didn't have to do a whole lot of work with that. The last thing I
Mhm.
might do here is I would say like rewrite this in a list format, so it's nice and neat and easy to read. And because it's got all of
Mhm.
that information, it should be able to do that pretty quickly. And there it goes.
Nice. Um, Before we move on to the next category of prompts, I wanted to show also a real world example, or like a business example in that like complaint thing, if we can.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm gonna steal the screen here real quick, and I was thinking like let's go along with that theme of like, consider these responses to customer service issues, right? So like we're a new coffee shop. We've got complaints coming in, right? And so I'm going to zoom this in just a little bit here. I've got these, 10 complaints have come in, and basically I said, hey, Copilot, like give me a list of like 10 complaints and 10 names, I made a table out of it. So we got these 10 things coming in, and I'm going to show you how you can use different techniques within the same process, right? So what I did in Word was I said, all right, Word Copilot, I want you to write me a response to customer complaints in a coffee shop where you empathize with the situation, you acknowledge the problem, and you offer a free coffee for next time as like the apology, right? So those three elements, give me it. That's a zero shot, right? I didn't give it any examples. I just said I need a generic I'm sorry message. Then I switched to one shot. So I started with zero shot. Give me an example. Now what I've done is I copied that and I said, I need help writing responses to customer complaints. I want you to write a response to each of these 10 complaints in this list of complaints. So because we got Copilot for Microsoft 365, I use the slash command. I'm doing a reference in Copilot, which is something that you can do in Copilot chat. And then I'm giving it its one shot. Here's the generic thing I want you to do. Go. So I started with zero shot to draft the inspiration. I'm using one shot to actually do the task. And here's exactly what it did. So Copilot went through, it looked at the spreadsheet, and it grabbed each complaint in the list and said, okay, this one of the coffee's too cold. So I'm not going to copy word for word. I'm going to, it's going to like be a little bit more nuanced. I'm sorry it wasn't served at the right temperature. We're sorry that the taste did not meet your expectations. Like it's a little bit different. It's not a mail merge where it's actually like the same generic thing. It's acknowledging the problem because it knows the problem based off of, where it got its information. That's one of those ingredients, right? In the ingredients to build a good prompt with Copilot. One of the ingredients is the source. The source is my list of complaints. I know what the complaint is. So Copilot, I want you to acknowledge the complaint, right? So it's doing the same structure based off of what I gave it, which is empathy, acknowledgement, offering a free coffee. And you can see in here, it does it at the same time. Complimentary hot coffee. As a token of our commitment, we're offering you a free coffee. It words it a little bit differently, but it's got the same thing every time. And you can see here, I went through every single of those 10 things. The only thing it didn't do right, Andy, is it says dear customer name. And like I've got the name in the spreadsheet. So I wish it would have said like dear Emma, dear Lionel, or whatever. So it got me like 90% there. But like, dude, that's pretty good compared to like a mail merge, where it's like just we're sorry about your issue. Like it acknowledges what the issue was. And that's that boost that we're talking about, like the drudgery of work of like, answering these every single time, but like also, providing better customer service. This is why, generate AI is worth the sticker price, because you could do it as a mail merge, but it wouldn't be taken as good as like being customized for the person. So, but that's a real world example of, zero shot to one shot prompting.
That's a great example, and it shows the flexibility that you can get out of something like Copilot. And for the part about getting the names right in there, that's an easy fix. There's a couple of different ways we could easily get that in there. And if
We
you think
probably could
about
have told it in the prompt to like make sure that you put the person's name in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that detail, like I talked about last month with my son. Like I tell him to unload the dishwasher, he puts the dishes on the floor. The dishwasher's empty, but like I would have to tell him put this here, put this there. That's where we were talking about last month. We're like, you got to be really literal with this thing, because I just assumed that it would put the person's name in there. Well, no, it didn't. It didn't know that. So I would have to tell it to put the person's name in.
Yep.